Hello and welcome. In our BNAR Spotlight this month, fittingly enough, it's Tim Clark, who is the commissioner of the Buffalo Niagara Film Office. Tim, welcome.
Well, thanks, Brenda. It is a real privilege and pleasure to be here.
Well, it's really a treat for me to have you here. We've known each other a long time, and I've always been impressed with your work with the Buffalo Niagara Film Office. And you said you've been there about 17 years already now.
17 years of making movies in Buffalo and Niagara Falls and all of Western New York.
It sounds like a dream job, and I'm sure it's not as glamorous as it may appear. Tim, talk about a little of the number of movies that have come through Western New York and how you're able to position Buffalo and our region as a magnet for movie makers.
Well, it's interesting because when I first started this job, Brenda, I really was scratching my head a lot because there weren't a lot of movies being made here. You know, and everybody kind of goes back to the 80s and even the 90s when The Natural was here. John Hughes actually was here for a little bit of Trains, Planes, and Automobiles with John Candy and Steve Martin. But then there was this lull. There was a couple of decades, or actually 3 decades of nothing, really. I shouldn't say that because there were smaller little things that would sneak in and out. There were indigenous projects. But then all of a sudden, we got this great tax incentive for upstate New York, and some of the studios rediscovered Western New York and discovered all the architectural treasures that we have here, as well as this great rebate that they get for shooting here. So it's been a mixture, kind of a confluence of things, but it all bubbled up to a good sum total.
You know, I remember specifically, was it Best Friends with Goldie Hawn and Burt Reynolds?
Good
and
memory,
of course, The Natural, and I was one of the people standing out there in the freezing cold on Summit Avenue, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Always been a huge movie buff, and so exciting to see A-list celebrities come to Buffalo. And then, as you mentioned, there is that great lull. But now, Tim, it seems like a lot of folks are discovering Buffalo. Do you think the tax incentive that you referenced, was that the driving force behind it?
Well, it was, and it is. It's always about the money, right? So especially at the studio level, they're always very concerned about, well, where can we get the most bang for our buck? So what you have in Western New York is you have the dollars, right? You have the economic sense of the incentive, but you really also have other factors. And those other factors include, as I said earlier, the architectural elements in this town, second to none. I can tell you that we have an inventory of architectural assets that probably range from the 1700s to modern day. So you have all of that. But you also have, you know, the nicety of this community, the people here. There's a real welcoming aspect, which they don't always get, you know, when a movie shoots in New York City or like in Los Angeles or, you know, any of the surrounding communities. People get aggravated that they're, you know, in their neighborhoods shooting, you know, all night or whatever. Here they seem to embrace it a little bit more, and there's no fatigue like that yet.
Interesting how Buffalo was recently named the friendliest city in the U.S., so I think that really speaks to your point, too. So, Tim, specifically about the architecture, we all know the beautiful Art Deco City Hall in Buffalo, and I know that the movie with Guillermo del Toro and Bradley Cooper was shot there. Was it Marshall?
No, that was Nightmare Alley.
Oh, Nightmare Alley.
Guillermo is a huge Art Deco fan,
so
he fell right in love with this town.
And then the Central Terminal, is that another point?
The Central Terminal is another great Art Deco structure that attracted Guillermo and his team, but also attracted, if you recall, that was also in the movie Best Friends. It was also in the movie The Natural. So it had played a central role, both literally and figuratively, in the movie business.
What are some of the other key landmarks that people would identify as magnets for movie makers?
City Hall, absolutely right there. Niagara Falls, the actual physical falls, is another great thing. We had Melissa McCarthy, Susan Sarandon, a number of great artists there, and let's see, what else?
John Krasinski shot part of The Office, right?
Yeah, he's been here twice now. He shot an episode of The Office, actually 4 episodes they got out of that, but also he was here to shoot A Quiet Place too.
Yes.
He directed his wife Emily Blunt, and really enjoyed the place that he had been before, but when he came to direct now, he really fell in love with it all over again. It's funny because when he came here, Brenda, there was really some feeling that he would go back and forth to New York, you know, where they have a home, and they really stayed here.
Really?
Much of that summer, yeah, most of the summer. They just found great restaurants, a great culinary scene here. They were staying in a very, very nice home that they rented with, you know, just a variety of things to do in this town. You know, we have a zoo. They have small children, right? So the zoo, you wouldn't expect something like that in a town this size. You know, there are many cities larger than us that don't even have a zoo. The art museums, the Philharmonic. I mean, the quality of life here is second to none, in my opinion.
What's your view, though, conversely, Tim, when people say, well, Buffalo's just cold 6 to 8 months out of the year, it can't be an attractive place. Well, how do you counter that?
Well, I get them here, and that's really the hook, right?
Right.
So when you get them here and they realize, I never knew this was here. I never knew it, you know, that Niagara Falls was only 20 minutes from downtown Buffalo. I never knew that there were so many great restaurants in Buffalo with amazing chefs. So when they see all of that and they realize it, they go home befuddled, but they also go home wanting more. And so we have a great number of repeat customers. We have a great producer, Jonathan Sanger, and his producing partner, Mike Jones, MJ, they call him in Hollywood. They're like looking at their third movie here now to shoot. They were here for Marshall. They were here for Cabrini, which was another period film. And they're looking at least one, but perhaps 2 or 3 others that they could shoot here. And you know, Jonathan has shot everywhere in the world. His first movie, I believe, that he produced was The Elephant Man, which was shot in London, England, with John Hurt.
Yep. I remember that movie.
Yes, it was a great classic and an Academy Award winner, in fact. And he puts Buffalo up against any of the other cities that he shot in around the world.
That's got to make your day. What high praise.
It does. Well, it's high praise really for this community. You know, I know oftentimes developers kind of wince with preservationists, you know, and shake their fists at them. But I tell you, I'm very grateful for them keeping a lot of this older stuff around, because in many communities they're just not there.
I just read an article recently, Tim, about Mark Summers from the Food Network, who was, you know, bringing his work to Buffalo and walking the neighborhoods. And he said it was fascinating. He just kept walking and walking.
Well, if you really look at Buffalo, and also I say Buffalo, but I really mean Niagara Falls, Lockport, Jamestown, all these areas. You know, the neighborhoods all have different looks, and they all have this sort of post-World War II, you know, architecture, and you know, a real sense of community here.
Yes.
And I don't know that you really get that in many other cities. And we're very more, the attitude in Buffalo is, I think, a little more Midwestern than it would be like a suburb of New York City. Some people think, wow, Buffalo, New York, they must be just you know, a stone's throw from Manhattan.
Yes.
When they get through that and realize, no, this is a pretty cool little town that is the second largest city in the state of New York. Yeah, they go home and they keep smiling.
I'm glad you brought up about the neighborhoods and how distinctive they are, Tim, because I think about around Delaware Park and along Delaware Mansion Row and the beautiful upscale homes around Lincoln and Chapin and so forth. Then you have more modest homes perhaps in Cheektowaga, South Buffalo, or even parts of North Buffalo, parts of Williamsville.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to me. And also, if you talk about Clarence, it's more rural, and certainly in the southern tier, there's so much to choose from.
There really is, and you know, every movie's a little bit different. Every project's a little bit different. Now we're shooting today, the day we're taping this, we're shooting a large television commercial that will be seen nationally, and you know, they wanted a small town look, so they're in East Aurora and doing some work out there. But you know, we could have something tomorrow that needs something ultra modern, and we might take them to the AKG Museum or something like that, or the Federal Courthouse downtown. But you know, honestly, I like to think we specialize in period architecture and period movies, and it's a good thing.
Do you find that any of the folks who come here actually buy property?
Yeah. In fact, many crew members who weren't from here either have moved here or have bought purchased homes here. One in particular was one of the officials of the Teamsters local, theatrical Teamsters, who bought some property in the city of Buffalo and gets here as often as he can to work on movies because he likes to stay at his own place when he's here. But also, you know, he comes up for a little pleasure once in a while too with his family. They go to Niagara Falls in the summer and do a lot of that kind of thing.
And we can't forget the economic impact of
big.
What these people bring to the community, because I've heard you speak about, you know, buying lumber and frequenting our restaurants and hotels, and just as you mentioned with this gentleman, Tim, buying a property and filling it with furniture and, you know, other amenities, obviously.
Well, and it's funny because all of these movies buy stuff, they rent stuff, and they just leave a lot of money that's not recirculated money, incidentally. It's not money from Buffalo. It's coming in from Los Angeles, it's coming in from New York, it's coming in from, you know, a variety of other places. So it's new money that's spent in our community, and that's really a staggering figure. I used to look and say, do movies really bring in millions of dollars? They bring in tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars in some communities, and we are very poised and ready with this new film tax credit to just do much, much more production, and I feel very strongly that the future in Western New York is extremely bright as far as movie making goes, but also as far as the general economy as well.
Tim, how does that movie credit work, or the tax credit work? Will it be ad infinitum, or is there a deadline that you have to use it by?
No, what it is it's so. They raised it to 30% all over the state, but then if you go to places like Buffalo, upstate New York, it's an extra 10%. So the filmmakers are getting 40% of their movie budget back, and that includes below the line, above the line, which are kind of technical terms, but it also applies to goods and services and sort of those kinds of things. But the good thing is it sounds like it's a giveaway, right? But it really, I got to tell you, it inspires them to come and spend more money here, and they're spending more than we're handing out. So that's it's really a positive thing. If anywhere where the film tax credit program, anywhere in New York State is working, it's working the best right here in Western New York.
As we wrap, I've got to ask you about coming attractions, right?
Well, I've always got to be careful. I'm always a little bit, have to be secretive about what we're doing, but we do have some major studios that have been visiting, and we've kind of very discreetly moved them around town. We have another movie scout coming in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, and we'll be exploring above the street and below the streets as well in Buffalo. So
interesting.
We got a lot going on, and a lot of major stuff. So if everybody gets their cinematic boots strapped in, we'll be ready to go.
Perfect time of year for that, to sit back, enjoy the movies, get the popcorn ready. Oh, by the way, Cabrini too. Which was shot here. Is that coming out soon?
That'll be in March of '24, and if you really want to see Buffalo in a total period look, Cabrini's going to deliver, and they made it look like the late 1800s, New York City, 5 Points area of New York, which doesn't exist anymore, but they built it here in Buffalo, in South Buffalo actually, on Elk Street. So when you take a look at that movie, you'll be stunned to believe that it's Buffalo, but it is really cool.
Tim, congratulations on all your hard work.
And congratulations to you, too, and the association. It's a wonderful group of people.
And real estate is the backbone of our city in many ways.
Sure
and
is.
so I'm so happy that the Film Commission can leverage those beautiful homes and properties. And thank you so much for coming. And it was a pleasure to talk movies with you.
Well, my privilege indeed.
Tim Clark, Film Commissioner. That'll do it for this edition of Spotlight. I'm Brenda Alesi. We'll see you next time.